Well, welcome to this BC Strategies special Halloween edition podcast, joined by a series of experts here. And what we're going to talk about today is what is scary in the communications and collaboration industry. And let's go first and foremost to Tom Brennan, because I see you just below me. So Tom, welcome, and give us your thoughts on spooky things for this Halloween.
Yeah, well, if you know me, I'm an optimist, and I look at the positive side of things in general, and that's a kind of a personality trait. It's not necessarily something I intentionally do as an analyst, but there are some things that I am kind of concerned about and that scare me a little bit. And one is they both have to do with AI. So shocker there, we're going to talk about AI right off the bat. And one is that AI will kind of reach a plateau, but it won't quite get over the hump, and the bubble will burst, and that it could be a kind of a ripple effect across our industry that could be very negative, and that kind of scares me a little bit. Basically, the ability to AI to do what it can do doesn't live up to the hype somehow, and we kind of reach a point where people all of a sudden really start to pull back. And so AI not being good enough is one of the things that scares me. The thing that scares me even more is that AI can do even more than we think, and it actually is better than what we think it can do capability wise. And what scares me there is just obliterating the job market. I think we tend to look at it as something that we want to try to control, and that it's meant to, we say things like, we want to augment humans or, work alongside or collaborate with humans. But I worry it just kind of steamrolls jobs in every sector, especially entry-level jobs. And that could be a huge problem globally as we see kind of unemployment and we see kind of a huge macroeconomic impact that we can't avoid. So hopefully the truth's somewhere in the middle, that it's not, that the AI bubble doesn't burst and that it doesn't take over the world. So, hopefully we'll at least for the immediate future, we'll land somewhere in the middle.
Okay, I feel like you played both sides of the coin. Like, I'm scared because AI is not going to be good enough, or it's going to be too good. So I don't know. That's like you called the coin in the air and picked both heads and tails. But hey, let's go over to Chuck Vondra. Chuck, I mean, AI is scary. That was probably the go-to one. What is different than that? What is kind of scary when you look at the industry and where we all are right now?
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Two things scare me, and if I wasn't scared enough at Martha's presentation at the SCTC conference last month, one of our keynote speakers there talked about potential outcomes of AI relating to 4 variables. Will we, and when will we achieve superintelligence? And when will we inject ethics into AI? And if it was a yes, no, no, yes quadrant, and all of the 4 outcomes, they all scared me. I went up to the guy afterwards and said I was hoping for a 5th outcome that said, and we're all going to live happily ever after, but that was not one of them. So scary thing number 1 is really the lack of clarity on governance, regulation in the AI industry, especially here in the United States right now. Secondly, as a consultant, I'm not so much scared, but just sort of girding up for the pace of change. We've never seen anything like this. When we went from analog to digital to VoIP, BRI to PRI, we had time to prepare, to adjust. Things are changing so rapidly right now that it's hard to keep up. So 2 things: lack of clarity on governance and regulation, and secondly, the pace of change is hard for even insiders to keep up with. Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, no, that was good, and you talked about Martha's presentation, so it seems logical to go to you, Martha.
Okay,
scare us. It's
thank
Halloween.
you. Thanks, Chuck, for the lead-in, and Tom too. You both took some of my thunder away, which is just fine. I have a couple things that scare me. One of them is, and it's more basic than anything, is that how people, and by people I mean customers and users, how they define AI and how what's being sold may not match what's being delivered in terms of the expectation of the customer. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the litigation is just starting. And it is going to get very ugly as people, as entities rely on AI to make decisions, and for whatever reason, many of them may be perfectly valid, like I ran out of time, or it just seemed easier. They're going to rely on AI tools beyond what they should, and they're going to be burned in the process, and people are going to be harmed. And that's both medically, financially, professionally, every single way. I'm lucky enough to be teaching a class in ethics in IT at the moment, and we talk about this in class all the time. It's a great tool, but in and of itself, it is a dangerous weapon. And as it becomes more widely deployed, it will become a bigger deal, and there's much more risk.
Well, I appreciate, yes, and yeah, I know you often talk about kind of the litigation impact, and that is just beginning, and that there are specifically lawyers who are out there, in a sense, looking for AI fails, to kind of litigate against, which
And they've been found. They've been found. They're and not only lawyers, but 2 district court judges have been caught using AI tools and citing cases that don't exist.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, let's go over to Mr. Danto, David Danto. I mean, who often talks about, in a sense, AI being scary, but now I'm going to ask you to not do that. So maybe pick something different.
I mean, I wasn't thinking about AI when I started this, so I'm glad that you set me up that way. I appreciate it, and happy Halloween to everybody. I'm scared by how few people in leadership roles in our industry understand basic economics, and I'm going to explain that a little bit because it's a little nuanced, but not all that much. We have seen, and I'm not exaggerating, millions of layoffs over the last 2 years in large companies, in large tech companies, in large financial companies. The numbers are staggering. And what I don't understand is why the leadership of very profitable large technology companies, not ones that are struggling and have to lay off people so that they can stay in business, I get that. But what I don't understand is why are we laying off people in the hundreds of thousands of workforce reductions without realizing that these are the people that use the tools that you license and make. We've witnessed millions of less users of Microsoft Teams or of Zoom or of Google Meetings or of any of the other technology tools. How do they think they're going to sell their products? It goes back to the original analogy of if you can take your shirt factory and move it out of the country so that it's less expensive to make the shirts, but then nobody can afford to buy them. Where do we think the customers are going to come from? And it comes down to the basic economics of you can't shrink to grow. You have to grow. And what we're doing is we're appeasing short-term results, driven by Wall Street and financial services companies. Oh, look, they've cut, 2%, 5% of their workforce. The stock gets bumped up, it gets raised. People that are in leadership roles get more money because of that, but the company is going to fall apart in the next 3 or 4 quarters after they've left. So I don't understand. It scares me that we're entering a period in time where we think losing millions of players that would be using unified communications and collaboration, and profitable companies are no longer there to license and buy the tools.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I mean, that is obviously scary, and I think you've written and spoken about the human impact, especially for these companies that are doing very well, and I think we've certainly seen that in the tech industry. So that is a very human story, and that is very scary for all those people that are impacted. You talk about economics, and so I know Joseph Williams has many titles, but has gone by the cloud economist. So I don't know, Joseph. I mean, you don't have to talk about economics, but what do you find kind of scary in the current state of the communication and collaboration industry?
Well, I'm scared that John Arnold is a Toronto Blue Jays fan. We don't like the Blue Jays out here in Seattle
Go
for
Blue
obvious
Jays!
reasons.
Go Jays!
So I've been doing AI with this crew for a decade. So I'm gonna pivot away from economics and talk about AI, the scary stuff about AI. Um, there are, as Martha mentioned, a bunch of security and privacy problems with AI and unified communications. The one I am most playing with myself is deepfake infiltration. It's very, very easy in the remote world to use deepfakes and infiltrate organizations. And although that seems very nefarious and hard to do with the tools that are out there right now, it's actually very easy to do. And so that's a problem. There's some operational risks attached to AI. I think, like transcription, for example, as a service inside of unified communications, the level of accuracy is decent. It's not great. And if you over rely on that, you could potentially get into trouble. Um, there are packages out there, as you guys know, that take a look at maybe like the emotional characteristics of the people participating in the meetings. And emotional reads are very inaccurate at the moment and certainly don't control for cultural variance. Some cultures are just different behavior, like Canadians. I was with a bunch of Montreal people this week. They're mellow and sweet and nice, and they're nothing at all like Seattleites in terms of, how over emotional we tend to get about simple kinds of things. Martha also mentioned compliance and legal concerns. I think there are going to be a plethora of compliance requirements that are legislated. And I think that records retention is going to be a problem. And that will lead to e-discovery issues. And I don't want to get too technical about that. But right now I'm working for the state government. And I can tell you records retention is a pain. And then I almost never opine on call centers because we have such fabulous people who are really good at it. But I actually prepped a talking point document recently on this. And there are ways in which call center AI can be used to do predatory upsells and things like that. It's a bit scary when you actually walk it all the way through on what that could do. There are a lot of vulnerable populations out there, and although call centers are probably not as important as they used to be for customer interactions, they're still important, and there's a lot of potential to do social engineering in the call centers, and that worries me quite a bit. So that's my piece. And then we could have John explain why he's a Blue Jays fan.
Well, because he's picked the right team to back. So both John and I being here in Toronto, we have a very important game coming up, a Halloween game, and the Jays brought it back here to Toronto to win. So that's fantastic. But John, the Blue Jays, I mean, that's not scary at all. Hopefully, the outcome will hopefully not be scary. But in terms of the communication and collaboration industry, what scares you?
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Ditto to everything that's been said so far. Just for the record, folks, I think most of you know I'm a Boston guy, but even I have to go with the Jays right now. I mean, this is pretty exciting for this city, that's for sure. If you're a sports fan, and I know a lot of you are, not only have the Jays not won the World Series since '93, but no Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup since that time. So this is potentially a pivotal year in the sports world if it goes right. But
can I just interrupt you for a second and just say that it's the support for the Jays is region wide, it is not limited to Canadians. Thank you.
Well, it goes a long way. And sorry about your Sabres last night, Martha. They outplayed the Bruins big time, but anyways, got the short end. But you'll have your games at home too. Anyways, the scary part about this, I don't want to be too cynical, folks, but when the Jays do win the World Series, I'm scared about the pushback we're going to get, that tariffs are going to go up, that who is just going to declare it a fraud, fake, the whole thing, because you just can't stomach the idea that a Canadian team, even though they're all American players for the most part, is going to do it. So, okay, back to our world. So I have two things to add. One is, and we're all guilty of this, it's so convenient and easy to use, just like Alexa was a few years ago and Siri on the Apple phones. This is becoming like the default and the go-to for a lot of people to get stuff and get stuff done. And I'm just worried that, like you say, Joseph, we're going to end up lowering the bar, compromising what passes for quality work and thinking. And I think we all know situations where it's easy to detect work that's getting done through AI, and it's not that great. And so this could end up being a productivity killer in a lot of ways, that we spend more time rewriting, correcting errors that we just outsource to AI to do for us with ChatGPT and all the agentic stuff. And, it's got to reach a point where either we live with it and just accept the quality work is going to be crappy. And maybe this is a problem for the digital generation to figure out, because we're all analog people. We know the difference. But I worry a lot that the younger generation is going to come to accept this as the norm. And then all this institutional knowledge that we've built up in organizations and in our careers is just going to disappear. And the base, kind of like the single source of truth, the bar will get so low. That's what I worry about. The other thing, on a personal note, and there's plenty of analyst inventory here in this group. Writing is the most important skill for any analyst. If you cannot get your thoughts across effectively and convincingly through writing, you're not going to be a credible analyst. And I really worry. I see this in my work and the kind of projects and relationships I have with clients. They are relying more and more on AI generated content. That why pay an analyst to do this stuff when I can get it for free in 5 minutes? And I just, again, worry that the bar is going to get compromised enough that the value of us as analysts, as we've known it, is going to be diminished. For us as independents, that's one thing. It's probably a bigger problem for the Gartners and IDCs of the world, whose business model is based entirely on, research by the pound, that kind of thing. And boy, oh boy, there's going to come a point where people are going to say, why the hell am I spending all this money when I can get good enough results with AI? So personally, on a career level, that scares me. I wouldn't want to be going into the analyst game if I was in my early 30s right now. I think that's going to be an uphill battle unless you're really creative and we're able to reinvent ourselves to kind of stay ahead of AI and avoid the kind of things that AI is just going to steamroll over so much of stuff we've been doing for so many years. Dave, I know you've lived this. Tom, we're seeing it too. And I worry about this for our little analyst community for sure.
I think there's a morphing, John, away from analyst to influencer, and you're an influencer.
That's a whole other conversation. That's got nothing to do with AI, but it's kind of enabled by AI. That's a different conversation, Joseph, but let's leave that alone for now. But I agree with you.
Yeah, I know, John, you don't want to be called an influencer, and have very strong feelings about that. But I think you definitely raise a good point. But in some ways, back to kind of the Tom approach, you were playing both sides by saying it's easy to identify AI and it's lowering the bar. I sometimes push back on that because I think Joseph brought up, deep fakes are getting very convincing. And so I think that the writing of AI is potentially only going to get better. And yes, everybody M-dashes thinks it's written by AI now, but I think it may be harder to identify that. But to your point, John, writing is about the doing. You can't go to the gym and watch somebody exercising and think that it's going to help you. So if you don't do the hard process, and I'll tell you, for me, it's hard. It takes me a long time to get my ideas succinct and concise, and maybe I never get there. But so those are scary things. I'm going to add my scary thing. It's going to be a little bit different. It certainly does relate to AI, but I'm concerned about the the complexity explosion. I think we see this with AI. There's co-pilot confusion. There's a million different co-pilots. But even just in terms of the feature that are being thrown out in all of these, UC tools faster and faster, I worry that at some point it just starts to confuse the end users and they get diminishing returns because the vendors say, last year we introduced 1,000 features, and from a marketing perspective, they think that that's a good thing. But, combine that with all the different AI and the agents, they just, the different modes. I think that end users are just struggling to use some of the core features well. And as, the vendors move things around, I wonder when the confusion, because of the complexity, just causes people to either abandon and move to different, simpler tools, or maybe just kind of have reduced kind of productivity. So I find that complexity, increasing, that is scary to me. So, and any final thoughts from any of the BC Strategies experts in terms of, what other people said? Tom, you went first, so I don't know. Did you agree with what other people said? Was there anything you wanted to add?
No, I mean, I think just to play on what you just said, I think hopefully we'll get to a point where AI solves the complexity problem. And we're starting to see that with it being a little more proactive. So rather than a great example I was thinking about when you said that is WebEx. Like it's a little bit hard to invoke a co-pilot meeting scheduler and to create a poll during a meeting. But when it just starts going like, hey, do you want a poll? Do you want me to set up a follow-up meeting? So I think it's going to take a different approach of how we interact with machines as opposed to invoking tools, just having it constantly there and then making suggestions that it sees that might be of benefit to us. So I think the answer to your concern and your thing that you're scared of, hopefully AI solves that. And I think the interesting thing about it is it does have the ability to solve some of the things we're scared about. So it's one of those weird things that we've never really dealt with before, a technology that can do that. So,
well, I think that's a great place to kind of to leave it. I know we'll have many more discussions, but I guess happy Halloween to everybody. Thank you for joining us on this BC Strategies podcast. Thanks for all the experts and all their different insights and opinions. Go Jays go, and don't eat too much candy this evening. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye all.